What's up, guys? Welcome to the first ever episode 28 of the Kind of Funny Gamescast. As always, I am Tim Gettys. I'm joined by the coolest dudes in video games, Colin Moriarty and Greg Miller.
Good evening.
I'm excited for this. A lot of cool shit to talk about today.
Yeah?
Some sad stuff to talk about today.
Yeah.
Some interesting things to talk about today. Some experiences that we've had.
You take the good, you take the bad.
Yeah.
Take them
most
both, there
than
you
you
have.
have.
Facts of life.
life.
Facts of life.
So, before
When the world
God,
doesn't
damn
seem to be living. Give me the beat. Give me the beat. Up to your knees. Come on, Colin. It's the facts of life are all about you. All about you.
All right, so.
I won't need this anymore.
What? The wallet?
Yeah.
You done?
No, I think with pipes like that, I can go anywhere in this country.
So you just
and
don't need
eat
your
and
wallet.
drink for free.
Okay. Didn't know that's how anything worked, really. So this episode, I want to give a shout out to Leaping Tiger,
Oh, yes.
our friends over there. So it's an app that lets you, or a website too. So it's iOS only right now. But if you go to leaping-tiger.com, you can, if you're an Android user, you can do that there and you'll be fine. It allows you to meet up with other gamers to play online.
Right.
Specific times and all this stuff. Like, it's a social gaming thing.
Right.
It's pretty cool.
It's a
And we're
networking.
doing something called Game Nights.
Right.
Because right now the thing is only Kind of Funny people are using this app.
If you haven't been keeping up with this, Leaping Tiger went to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, sponsored us for the month, so they get the month of shoutouts. Thank you for your support.
Yes.
So yeah, what they're doing is, since we're already Kind of Funny fans, they were like, I think honestly, when we launched Kind of Funny Games, they were the first people to buy the sponsorship from Patreon.
Yeah.
And so like they've been with us the whole time. They're real fans. They're real cool folks. Their deal is that they've soft launched this app. So if you download this app, you use the website, you use it to match it make with other people, you get to go hang out with the Kind of Funny people. But the cool thing is that every Wednesday right now for this month, what they're doing is you go there 7:00 Pacific time. You can play for 2 hours. Again, we're doing Rocket League because it was such a success last week. Doing Rocket League. You go on there, you find other Rocket League players, you exchange your information, you go play, yada, yada, yada. That's great. You make friends, you play a cool game made by Jeremy Dunham, which we love. However, to sweeten the deal, they're giving one person a PlayStation Vita every one of these Wednesday meetups.
It's good.
Yeah.
I really like it a lot.
I
So
like my
definitely
Vita.
check them out. Leaping-tiger.com, or there's the app that you can go get on iOS. So, guys, first topic of order today, future Nintendo. So, last week, Iwata-san passed away.
Yeah.
And we were all very sad, and there's all this stuff. And me and Colin did a little Kirby's Adventure Let's Play where we kind of gave our thoughts on the whole thing and just wanted to kind of celebrate his life and all the things that he's done. And we talked a bit about how the internet, I'm happy with the internet and how it's handled some of these deaths recently.
Right.
Where it's, of course, there's going to be negative people.
Sure, there's a
wherever
bunch of
you go,
trolls and jerks.
but overall, it was overwhelmingly positive. People really kind of stood together to remember Iwata. There was the hashtag Thank You Iwata,
Yeah.
and it was a real big thing. A lot of people making tribute videos, a lot of people doing Let's Plays of the various games that he played. They were very influential on all of us and all the people out there and all that stuff. So, having said all that, this is less a topic about all that and just more, where does this leave Nintendo? And if you have anything to say about him, for sure, feel free. But this is more about where do we see Nintendo going from here now that they don't have the leader?
I feel, Nintendo's been on the precipice of change for a while, and everything we talk about with the NX and why they're not putting out more games on the Wii U right now, right? Colin always talks about it. Their hands are tied, right? They can't put stuff out on the Wii U to not sell, so they have to wait to try to get it to the NX. So they, it's like this double-edged sword kind of thing they're dealing with, right? And so what's going to be interesting is, what is the NX? How revolutionary is it? How different is it? Is it this handheld console bundled in one? And then how will they talk, when they talk about messaging, about what Iwata's role was in that? Because if it comes out and it is, hey, we've learned from all of our mistakes, this is how it's looks, this is what it's going to be. It's going to be easy for third parties. We're competing with PlayStation, Xbox, whatever you want to say. People are going to be knee-jerk reaction of oh man, this is the new Nintendo, all because there's new people in charge now and this is the change. When in reality, you have to imagine those choices have been made for a while. They're on this path. Iwata was part of that. So it's interesting. I don't know what, I hope, and when we talk about the NX, throw it up, that the NX is something different. It is, Nintendo making something again for hardcore gamers or whatever you want to call us. You know what I mean? The core. And that is different in and amongst itself. So I don't know already. I always talk about how I'd love to be a fly on the wall who speaks Japanese and know what's going on in Nintendo to begin with. I feel like they've been on the road to change, and now that there is such a tragic change to be had, I don't know how much that influences who you bring in and how it molds the company going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's a few things to say, I think. First is that, to Iwata himself, what I always respected about Satoru Iwata compared to a lot of other executives in the industry, and it's not to say I don't respect any other executives in the industry, it's just to say what I respected about him is he was a game creator that was a businessman. He's not, more like the Peter Moore mold where it's like he's a businessman that understands games. And I always respected how Iwata really started at the very lowest rungs and worked his way all the way up to the very top of the company. And that was first at HAL Laboratory, who worked intimately, of course, with the Nintendo crew in the mid 80s. And then when he joined Nintendo properly, and then he became president of Nintendo in 2002. So I just want to throw that out that I have a lot of respect for that. That's an awesome bootstrap story.
Yeah, 100%.
And as you said, we played Kirby's Adventure and stuff, and he was one of the people instrumental behind that series, but he was also one of the instrumental forces behind, really beloved series like Mother, which is Earthbound, and, other things. I mean, then there's all these great stories about him kind of helping them finish Balloon Fight and how he did
Pokemon Gold and Silver, Pokemon Stadium, Smash Brothers, all of these crazy things.
Yeah, so I just have a great amount of respect for him because I think he was a game creator first, and a businessman second. That said, I think that there's a few. I think there's a lot of unknowns. This seems, and I don't presume to know anything about his illness and stuff like that, but it seems like it was very sudden when he passed away. But I wonder if it was really sudden for the people that were most in the know. In other words, I wonder if they might have suspected that they needed to, in the behind the scenes, start thinking about a future without him,
fortifying themselves for the inevitable, right?
Exactly.
This was the second E3 that he had missed, or exactly.
So I mean, he was sicker, I think, than we realized, and maybe I'm sure that the board at Nintendo and his colleagues and his peers at Nintendo probably knew way, way, way more than we did. And so I just wonder if this was I'm sure it was shocking and it's awful and it's sad, but I'm wondering if there was a contingency that they might expect that this might have to might have happened and they might have to move on without him. So I'm wondering if the trajectory it will change, or if it's just Iwata's been driving the car forward and someone else just now has to just put his foot on the gas pedal and we are already steering in the direction we need to go.
Sure, exactly. The ship's been turned and now it's on this path.
But Iwata, what's so fascinating about Iwata is he was the first president of Nintendo really outside of the very inner circle of the founding, and of the families and the names that were really important to Nintendo for a very long time. He was really the first new crew, new outsider to kind of come in. Not to say he was an outsider, he was with Nintendo, but a guy that was a younger guy, a guy that was put in installed to turn the ship during the early GameCube years when it was clear that Nintendo was in a lot of trouble. And he reigned over a Nintendo that was both its most successful and its, I don't want to say its most unsuccessful because that's not true, but the first time we had seen a Nintendo that was really in trouble, really was in trouble. Yeah, exactly. And so his whole leadership is a story of great decisions and some poor decisions, and that's going to be the case with anyone that takes over for him. So he kind of just had to go through the GameCube and the GBA, but the DS and the Wii were massive successes. The biggest success in the handheld and the biggest success in home console that Nintendo's ever had. He should be given a lot of credit for that because he was there from inception all the way through execution. But the same thing can be said for the Wii U, and so there's a sordid kind of legacy there with his leadership. But I think that he deserves a lot of credit because it was largely successful. And this whole pivot towards mobile and things that they need to do, and I think ultimately with the NX and then maybe even third-party development eventually probably has begun under his leadership as well. So he deserves a lot of credit. This opens the question of who will take over, and I don't presume to know names. I'm sure there's a short list of names there if they've not already made their decision internally of people that that can take over. The one thing that came to mind for me is is it possible that the person who takes over is not Japanese? And if that would be a good thing for them or a bad thing for them in terms of just that corporate culture and the corporate structure there to shake things up and find their success overseas.
I mean, that's the interesting thing there because the faces of Nintendo, at least in the last couple of years, have always been Iwata, Reggie, and Miyamoto, and we constantly see those three together, and they are the group, And it really makes you think, will Miyamoto step into that role? And then he's not necessarily, I mean, again, I don't know too much of the details on this, but I would assume that he's not exactly the CEO business type,
I don't think so. I think he's the little kid in an adult's body.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And in the best way possible.
In the best way, yeah. It's he needs to make games. In the same way, though, Iwata would do that too, but he did have that business mind and how how it would make everything work. But then Reggie is the other side of that. That Reggie obviously understands the games, understands what gamers want, and he understands all those things. But he is a business guy. But it's interesting because he is the American, and like could Reggie be the CEO of Nintendo?
Maybe. I mean, it's possible. It's something I've thought about. I just wonder if it's necessary or pertinent for them to look more in a more Western style. It reminds me of what Sony did with PlayStation 4 when they realized we only have a limited stock of this console, and Japan is a shrinking market and not really a super important market for us. Even though we are a Japanese company, it's still not that important. Even though there's 130 million people there, they don't play consoles the way we do. Our money and our bet is going to be made in the West, and we need to have a Western audience. So when they made their first couple million PlayStation 4s, they gave them all to the United States, and I wonder if that was clearly a smart move. Now I wonder if the Nintendo has to do that in a more systemic way to be like, we need a more Western influence, and much like Sony, Nintendo, I'm sure in Japan really is the core of the leadership. Like everything has to go through them, and I wonder if they want to kind of shake up the structure a little bit and say like, well, consoles are still strong in the United States, they're still strong in Canada, they're strong in Latin America, they're strong in Europe. We need to find someone from these places to talk to that audience. It reminds me of almost like what the Catholic Church did with the new Pope, where the new Pope's a Latino guy to speak to a huge Latino Catholic audience that was never really felt like they were being spoken to in their own language by someone that understands them better. And I wonder if it's almost a kind of a similar thing where it's like, well, maybe we do need to tap Reggie, we need to tap an unknown person. A great business mind.
An unknown one, I think, is the most interesting choice. You know what I mean? Of like what we're talking about, of like we are at this precipice of something new, so a different Nintendo, a different look for them. So yeah, they understand that. Not that they've made bad decisions, but they've made traditional decisions, or they want to break the mold of who they are. You bring someone else in to help do that, a trusted person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're very insular, so I don't know, But it seems like the whole direction they're going in now is just radically different. And that's why I was saying I give Iwata a lot of credit for that, because he clearly behind the scenes admitted that they did make huge mistakes, and the Wii U is a huge mistake, and they have to deal with it, and they'll deal with it, and they have the money to deal with it, and the means and the time. It's not a Sega Saturn or Sega Dreamcast situation where they're just fucking out of money.
Screwed, yeah.
It's not like that at all. So they have to eat it, and they did, and they are, and they'll move forward.
And he did himself too, and like that's like one of the most you hear all these stories now, and like I remember over time we've heard them, but like to get them all collected into one thing, like all the things that Iwata did, like when he took the pay cut, like what was it, a 50% pay cut when
they started losing
and all that stuff, like that's like that says a lot, about like the type of person that he was, and it's definitely interesting to think about like who could step into those shoes of. Like those are big shoes to fill, for somebody that obviously gets it, at least gets what's important. And he understood that it was important to keep the Nintendo employees happy, because there's one thing that Nintendo has never done wrong, and that's make good games. So whether or not their business decisions and like the hardware and all that stuff like nailed it, their games always did. So it's like him doing that meant that the people making the games that aren't the one thing Nintendo has going for it, they're not leaving, which would make worse games and all that stuff. And so it's like, those are the important decisions, So we need someone to kind of step up and make sure that stuff's still happening, but then also nail the business aspects.
Absolutely. And that was what was so interesting about Iwata to me, was that he did have a business mind, clearly. And I discussed this with people too, but what I always liked about him too is that in gaming, we often give a lot of the personal credit towards the artists or the visionaries, and I don't think that he was necessarily a visionary. He was he's not a Miyamoto guy that's like a character that's kind of like creating the games from the base floor necessarily, although he did help produce and create some of these great franchises. He was a programmer and a technical person. And with the exception of like Carmack and a few other people, like those kinds of people get very short shrift in the industry, and yet they're an essential cog in the wheel. And I liked how, unlike Kojima, who's more of like a director and a visionary, or Miyamoto or whatever, like Iwata was a programmer and a talented, scripter and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. Someone that it's so essential to have that kind of person. So I wonder if they want to stay in a similar vein like that. That's someone that understands games, at the nuts and bolts level like that, which I think some people that even just design and animate games don't quite understand like that. They're necessary. Like those are always the people that make your engines and make the game run and stuff like that. I always really enjoyed that about him as well. So, I think that they have decisions to be made. My assumption is that the decisions have already been made, and depending on how much they knew about his illness and how serious it was, the decision might have been made before he even passed away. But they're going to obviously give it time and flesh things out. There's no reason for them to say anything quickly. I'm sure their stockholders are interested, but yeah, I think the future of Nintendo is going. It's going to be different because he's not going to be there, but I think it'll be uninterrupted. I think the vision's laid out. Yeah. This is their last chance at console supremacy. I think. And or handheld supremacy, depending on what the hell the NX even is, and then they'll go from there. But with their move with DNA, and then my frank hope is that eventually they just get into making awesome Mario games and awesome Zelda games for everyone. But that remains to be seen. But I don't know. It's disruptive from a cultural level, but I don't know if it's disruptive from a strategic level for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Speaking more, just on elaborating on that, like what the actual future of Nintendo is as products and stuff. We've talked about this a million times, but like I think all of us agree that the NX is probably going to be some type of hybrid, that combines the handheld and the console stuff, and that eventually Nintendo will just go third party or whatever for software and just make games for everyone.
Unless this blows up.
Yeah.
Unless NX is super successful.
And then brings everything back and all that. But it's like, do you think that with all of this, there's a chance for some other option, like something else that with new leadership coming in, do you think there's any way that someone could come in that would change the path that they're on right now?
No, I don't think you can. I mean, the console R&D is probably worth tens of millions of dollars. The system's if the rumors are true, the systems are going to be ready to be manufactured by the end of the year, which means they already have a form factor. The internal guts are already there. The controller's done. People are making games for it. So, and the rumor was that they've been talking to people at shows for a while about it. So it's the console, whatever the NX is, whatever that initiative or that hardware, that movement is done, or being done, and you can't not go forward with that. And the DNA deal with mobile games, their first mobile game will be out by the end of the year, and there was a cross-pollination of real capital between those two companies, so you can't go back on it either. So I think, you can't have someone, take Iwata's place in the car driving it and then just fucking swerve off the road, because I just don't think there's anything there for them but complete desolation. Like they chose their path. I think it's a smart path. Try one more time with hardware, listen and figure this shit out that your competitors have figured out a long time ago, and make your great games and get your shit on mobile for your home market at the very least.
You figure it's not a monarchy, right? It's not like the new president comes in and then it's just like anything I say goes now. There are stockholders. There are all these different people. There is right now, as they try to figure out who is on that short list, who they're going to go with. They're going to be looking at, we want person X, because they're going to be ready to go with what we already are talking about. They understand what our future is, and that's what it's going to be.
Yeah. So, guys, leave a comment down below about your favorite Iwata memories, whether it's a game or things that he's done, or like wonderful speeches that he's given and all that stuff. I forgot to do this earlier, but this is the Kind of Funny Gamescast. Every week, day by day, it's broken up topic by topic over on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. You can get the whole thing earlier at patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. This one's worth $1. You should definitely do that if you haven't already. So.